What do economic graphs show in GED social studies? Imagine trying to understand how prices, goods, and services move in a market without seeing the actual numbers. Economic graphs are like visual maps that help you do just that. They show how different economic variables relate to each other, making complex ideas easier to grasp. When you look at an economic graph, you see data displayed visually, like lines or bars, which helps you spot patterns and trends. These graphs are essential for understanding how market systems work, especially in the context of social studies and economics. Most economic graphs have a title that tells you what they are about. The horizontal line, called the x-axis, usually shows time or quantity. For example, it might show months, years, or the number of items sold. The vertical line, called the y-axis, shows the dependent variable, like price, rate, or total amount. This setup helps you see how one thing changes in relation to another. There are different types of graphs you will encounter. Line graphs are common for showing how prices or demand change over time. Bar graphs compare different groups or categories, like sales in different regions or population sizes. Sometimes, you see multiple lines or bars together, which helps compare data side by side. These visuals make it easier to understand economic trends and relationships. Economic graphs reveal important information. For example, a downward-sloping supply and demand curve shows that when prices drop, demand usually goes up. They also show how a change in one variable, like price, affects another, like how much producers are willing to supply. Bar graphs can compare economic data across different years or groups, helping you see which areas are growing or shrinking. Line graphs help identify if an economic factor is increasing, decreasing, or staying steady over time. For GED social studies, understanding these graphs is very helpful. They help you analyze how supply and demand work together to set prices. You can see how population growth or political changes influence markets. When you see a graph with rising or falling lines, you can interpret what that means for consumers and producers. It's also important to distinguish between correlation, which is when two things happen together, and causation, which is when one thing actually causes another. To do well on the test, always read the graph's title and labels carefully. Know what the x-axis and y-axis representing. Look at the overall trend rather than just individual points. Use your knowledge of economic concepts like supply, demand, and market systems to interpret what the graph shows. Practice with different types of graphs so you get comfortable reading them quickly and accurately. In the end, economic graphs are tools that show how different parts of the economy interact and change over time. They help you understand the flow of goods, services, and money in a market system. Learning to read these visuals will make it easier to answer questions on the GED exam and understand real-world economics. They are simple yet powerful ways to see the story behind the numbers.